Welcome to another episode of the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blondin. You may ask yourself, who am I? Well, I say, who the hell are you? Just kidding, of course. We like to have a little fun on the show. Who am I? Like I said, I am Kyle Blondin, amateur sports bettor, sports bettor. Have done it for a long time. Love sports. Thought I'd put a podcast together to talk anything to do with sports gambling, talk about various wide range of sports from a perspective of I'm going to say a rookie, maybe an amateur, somebody who is looking to learn, somebody who's looking to get better, and just like you, hoping one day, and it's not going to happen, to be a pro at this. But those pros live in Vegas, and I'm not moving anytime soon. So this is called the Experience for a reason. It's meant to collect a bunch of sports bettors out there that love to do this as a passion. Love to bring new ideas, talk gambling. You're at a barbecue, that's what you're talking about, your bad beats, some of the great parlays you put together. And that's what this is for. So I'm always trying to think about what I'm going to say about what this podcast is about. Because it's not, I don't have a supercomputer in my home to tell you all the lines based on deep analytics. I am like you that watches a lot of sports, has thoughts, follows things, retains things with sports, and I thought I'd put a podcast together, and here it is. So hopefully you'll continue to listen. And just a quick shout out for those who have joined the podcast. Obviously, we have our folks from the T-Dot Toronto, our listeners from the local area, but also some of the farther reached folks out there in sports degenerates, just like myself. As far as Alexandria, Virginia, thanks for a shout out to you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for downloading the podcast. And I hope I'm saying this correctly. Selah, Washington State in the U.S. Thank you very much for joining us. Please keep logging in. And you know what? Join us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the Overrated Experience on Twitter. If I say that enough, maybe you'll join us on Twitter. And that's at Overrated EXPER 2. So please join us. Want to hear your thoughts. Give us some feedback on the show, but also just join, follow, and share your experiences. So as we get into the podcast this week, this podcast focuses on many sports, many situations, many stories. And if you've joined us in the past, we talked about the World Cup of soccer, we talked hockey, we talked, various things, college football. But the focus is obviously going to be the NFL playoffs. And our time we're going to spend together today is going to be that, talking about the 4 playoff games coming up this weekend, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. And before we get to that, I just want to touch base on some news in the sports world, sports gaming world, combination of both. And now one of them is for you folks using Sports Interaction. Sports Interaction has now just developed a Sports Interaction betting app. So if you are a Sports Interaction customer, or you have been in the past, you may have received an email talking about their first ever app. It was always online, a website, which was kind of peculiar since everybody's gone to the app. So download it if you're a Sports Interaction customer. Obviously a lot easier to place your bets. I've done so, even though I haven't deposited anything in the last couple of weeks into Sports Interaction, but haven't seen any changes to why the app is necessarily, stands out way above the website. They still got a long ways to go to make things to the level of the Bet365s, the FanDuels, and those other sites that I think most people are using. So I think they need to step up their game, and maybe it starts with the app. So we'll see where that goes. So some good stuff there. Now, awesome news from the mixed martial arts world. For those folks living in Ontario, and many of you are who listen, the Ontario government, based on some irregularities in betting last few months for the UFC and some of the policies that maybe weren't down pat or up to the level that the Ontario government, and that's really the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, called AGCO, who shut it down based on some of the insider information being shared. Now, it looks like the UFC has satisfied that government body for Ontario and putting new policies in place to forbid trainers and anybody connected to these fighters from actually placing bets So as of immediately effective now, that the betting is back on in Ontario for MMA just in time for UFC 283 happening this Saturday. Glover Teixeira, Jamal Hill, main event. It's time to bet, okay? And just my source of information here is the tsn.ca, and a quote, "The AGCO is committed to protecting Ontario players and the integrity of its betting market," said, I don't know what kind of last name this is, Mungham, in a press conference. With the legalization of single event betting last year, the AGCO created strong new rules to protect bettors in Ontario. We are pleased these rules are already working to strengthen the integrity of sports betting in Ontario and as a result of UFC competitions around the world. Wow, this is a great thing to put on your year-end review that look what we did. Pump my chest out. We changed the world. Your tax dollars are being effectively spent. Way to go. Way to go, AGCO. We really needed you there to help us out. Hey, maybe we did, but yeah, I'm sure that you looked at it as a good opportunity to show some value why you actually receive tax dollars in the first place. Well, that UFC's back. That's awesome. And just heading into the weekend, there's a ton of stuff going on here, a ton of sports. Again, we're going to focus on the NFL. However, for those, just as a reminder, if you like tennis, the Australian Open is in full swing. No pun intended. Actually, it wasn't pun intended. So check out Djokovic. Ripped he was talking to the chair umpire, fan just heckling him. Looking to get the fan kicked out of the event. So some fans really riding him. Funny scene there. And Nadal is out, hip injury. He looks like he's going to be down a few months. And that'd be pretty interesting going into June for the French Open, where he dominates. If you take a look at Rafael Nadal's success at the French Open, I believe actually he's the defending champion of the Australian Open, but he just owns anything clay court. That's interesting. And also PGA against full swing. The American Express is happening. Davis Thompson, current leader after day one. And for those who've never bet golf before, take a look at it. It is fun to bet. There's many different bets. Read up on it. Good stuff there. But we get into the NFL, and before we get into this week's matchups, I want to talk about some of the things that happened over the weekend with the 6 games, the wildcard weekend. Quickly rounding up, San Fran took on Seattle. I don't think there's much of a surprise here. Seattle, hung in there, took the lead at halftime, 14-13. But at the end of the day, San Francisco rolled them. We had some good plays on here. Christian McCaffrey had some big plays. Focal point. Brock Purdy stayed solid again, right? Geno Smith, as we predicted, exceeded his passing yards, which is great because obviously Seattle was chasing in the second half. So that was good news there, but no surprise. San Francisco covered the spread, and they pretty much owned the Seattle Seahawks. And bye-bye, Seattle. They have a tough decision to make. I think that you have, some solid play from Geno Smith. It looks like they're going to go with Geno next year, but you really got to be realistic. If somebody falls to you in the draft, like Richardson out of Florida, let's say, or somebody that may pique your interest, do you do it? But I think Geno Smith will be quarterback in the Seahawks next year. Give him a shot, see what happens, and wait for your right quarterback in the draft. Jacksonville, LA Chargers, the choke of the year, 27-0 Chargers, intercepted Trevor Lawrence 4 times. Jacksonville had nowhere to go, but back. So they scored 28 points and come back and win. You can't give up 28 points. You can't lose. You can't go into a second half with a huge lead like that and not have, you have all this technology, all these analytics, all the what if scenarios. What if I have a 20-plus point lead? How do I handle the game? Do I run the ball, which they did not effectively do? Because they have a thing called a clock in the game where if it runs out and the team can't score as many points as you can, you wind up winning and moving on. Maybe the Chargers didn't get that memo. Maybe they didn't understand how the rules work and when the clock starts, when the clock stops, when it less than 2 minutes in the second half, that's when the clock will stop once you go out of bounds. But incomplete pass after incomplete pass will actually stop the clock. Pretty stupid. Looks like Staley's going to stay on as coach for the Chargers. Some big, so far so good. After the first game, now leading in this game, as far as previous podcast predictions. Now, one of the plays I was excited about, I did pick Jacksonville. Didn't think it would come, develop like that. Lawrence 4 picks and, big time comeback. I didn't see that happening, but the result's the result. And also, one of the things that happened in the game was we talked about a successful 2-point conversion, which I thought we were close to. Jacksonville went for it, missed. And then suddenly late in the game when they could find themselves 3 points down, they go for the 2 points, after the Bosa throwing his helmet penalty that puts the team on the 1 yard line. And Lawrence waves the ball breaks the plane, gets the 2 points, plus 300, 320. Great call from us. I mean, obviously we have a lot of bad beats too. But I want to do a shout out for the podcast there that Doug Peterson, knowing he likes to go for the 2, especially if they get situated on the 1, was a play that worked out for us. So awesome play there. So we had a good day. Got San Fran game and the Jacksonville game. Heading into Sunday, Buffalo, Miami kicked off the Sunday action. Surprisingly, I thought Buffalo would have kind of handled Miami with Skylar Thompson, quarterback in the Miami Dolphins. The game was close. Miami was in it. Bills, they moved on. And some big, digs over 100 yards. Josh Allen, a big day as far as numbers-wise, but there was a couple picks in there, fumble, return for touchdown. Miami, it's weird. I don't know where they're going. McDaniel's coach, I think he's got a smart mind. I think you got to give him another year. He had 3 different quarterbacks he's trying to use to get through the season, which is tough to do. And Skylar Thompson was a third-string quarterback. Tua being out was a difference maker. And the struggle is to try to get the ball into the hands of Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Waddle was kind of left behind, which is not good. They got to spread the ball out there. So Buffalo moves on, and we'll see how they play against Cincinnati coming up this Sunday. And surprise of the day, at least from my perspective, not a lot of people's perspective, I had, I wasn't shocked that the Giants knocked off the Minnesota Vikings, but if I had, my play was taking the Minnesota Vikings, and I also took Justin Jefferson to have 80 plus yards, over 70 and change. That didn't happen. The Giants had a fantastic game. The Giants were absolutely fantastic. Daniel Jones, who the hell is this guy? Daniel Jones showed some life this year. He had some great games and really used his feet, and in this game was no different. 70 plus yards of rushing from the quarterback situation, but his passing, like he's throwing darts out there, man. He's throwing bullets. Daniel Jones is throwing bullets out there. Combination of passing and running, and then Barkley in the backfield. Some big plays on the defensive side of the ball, shutting down Jefferson. We talked about that. Jefferson couldn't get going in the second half. Giants had the right game plan. Brian Daboll, the coach, the first-year coach of the Giants, obviously doing something that the previous 18, I'm being exaggerating, couldn't do. The G-men are moving on. So, but the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, 4th and 10 was it at the end of the game there? No timeouts left. And he throws short to Hawkinson. This guy's a veteran quarterback. What a dumbass. Like what are you thinking? Throw the ball up in the air. You have to know the situation, you moron. Like, that's just terrible from a guy who's been around years, pocketing millions. And he gets you fooled, Kirk Cousins, that is. Like, maybe if this is his time to elevate himself to that next level, and then he just does something or has a game where, no, it's Kirk Cousins, mediocre, and he's kind of in between, the superstar quarterback and the god-awful quarterback. Because that's what's happening in the NFL. There's either the have or have not quarterback. It's hard to find quarterbacks in the middle. There's a few, and Kirk Cousins is that in the middle. And you really got to think with the shortage of quarterbacks. Minnesota has no option but most likely to bring him back. If you want to maximize the years of Justin Jefferson, Cook in the backfield, and some of the offensive weapons that they have, Cousins is probably your only option. Unless somehow you trade for Aaron Rodgers or something like that. I just don't see happening. But so expect Cousins back in Minnesota. Cincy, Baltimore. This one I thought, again, I looked at Cincinnati as probably having a walkover, waste of time. I felt this game was trash going into the late night Sunday nighter to end the weekend off with the weakest game. Baltimore with John Harbaugh, coach of the Ravens, found a way to keep this game close and outplay the Cincinnati Bengals. I know that I had a same game parlay where all I needed was 10 passing yards from Burrow, which I didn't get, and which was disappointing. But the Ravens were 1 yard away from taking a touchdown lead and probably holding on to a victory. Funny, if you haven't seen it, you got to look at Hundley trying to get jump and try to put the ball over the line, a la Joey Lawrence. There's where my head's at. Every time I think of Trevor Lawrence, I think of Joey Lawrence. Whoa. If you remember that, if you're old enough to remember the show Blossom. And if you're not, then you know how old I am. So let me do that again. Whoa. So for Trevor Lawrence, his height and his length, he was able to get the ball in for the 2-point conversion. The story is Hundley gets the call. He's going to keep the ball, take it into the end zone. He decides to jump. However, he has players behind him trying to push him in, which is probably not the right thing to do. Put him in an awkward scenario. He stretched, was well short. The ball was knocked out of his hands, and ball was returned for a 98, 99-yard touchdown, which cemented the game for the Bengals. The Bengals didn't look good at all. The Bengals have a lot of weapons. The Bills have a lot of weapons. But both teams, just got by. But I wouldn't worry too much because there is, every time, there is always a story that the Super Bowl champ has a game or a play that significantly could have changed the outcome of their playoff run. So let's think of, I can't remember how many years ago today, but today's the anniversary of the Tuck Rule. The Raiders they're up on the Patriots, fourth quarter, minute change left. Brady gets hit, fumbles the ball, or did he fumble the ball? And so it looked like the Raiders had the ball, about to take a knees and get to move on to the playoffs. But no, it was a Tuck rule that the quarterback's hand was going forward, so it was an incomplete pass. And that changed everything. Patriots come back, win. I believe it was in overtime. I think I was like 21 at the time, or whatever, or 23 or something like that at the time. That's how long ago it was. But they went on, win a Super Bowl. Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl year where they knocked off the 49ers with Joe Flacco. They were one pass away from being knocked out late in the fourth quarter. Joe Flacco, who can, in his heyday, could jack one up there, 70-plus yards. Threw one up there. I can't remember the name of the safety of the Broncos. Bad play, bad decision. And, he makes the right play on that, knocks the ball down. Ravens are not winning that Super Bowl. They don't move on from that game against the Broncos. So we don't know if that play for the Bengals is that play as they look back as a Super Bowl champion, let's say, or the Bills, having several plays that were significant to them. So just keep that in mind. It's usually the run to the Super Bowl is not a perfect run by any means. So I wouldn't take that into account necessarily going into this Sunday. And as we go into this Sunday, as I nicely segue into that, we look at the matchups that we have. We have 4 matchups, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. First matchup is the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Kansas City Chiefs, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Had the week off, obviously. You kind of wonder, having the week off, is it a benefit or not? Obviously, from an injury standpoint. And they get a chance to heal up and don't lose anybody in the first week, while Jacksonville is probably a little hobbled coming in. But looking at this game, KC's a 8.5-point favorite. Looking at some of the lines here, and I think I don't see KC losing this. They got the best, arguably the best quarterback in football. They got the experience. They got that loss to Cincinnati at home under their belt. I just don't see them taking the foot off the gas at any point in the playoffs this year to kind of let up on a team like Jacksonville to surprise them. So here's what I like. I like KC to be ahead predominantly this whole game. Maybe Jacksonville hangs in the game like Seattle did first half, but here's a KC pick. Trevor Lawrence passing yards over 250.5 on FanDuel. It's minus 114. Sorry, on FanDuel it's 250.5 at minus 114. Here's the weird part, and this is the reason why you should have multiple books. You have Bet365 has the same bet, but it's Lawrence over 242.5 minus 110. What site would you take? Right, the math doesn't add up. So if you look at, I'm gonna put the play out here as 242.5 on Bet365 minus 110. Trevor Lawrence, who I feel just like Geno Smith against the 49ers last week, is going to be chasing and have to go to the air more than he wanted to, probably earlier rather than later in this game. Interesting bet as well. Shortest touchdown, less than 1.5 yards, is minus 105 in this game. The interesting part, out of the 6 games last week, 5 of the 6 had a touchdown less than 2 yards. So the odds are pretty darn good that there's a penalty in the end zone that places the ball in the 1. There is a close play at the end zone. You always see the referee putting his hands up for a touchdown. Oh no, he's short. He's on. They put the ball in the 1. So the odds are pretty good at minus 105 that there's going to be a touchdown scored by either team less than 1 yard. Also, like I said, I like Kansas City, and their team total is 31. I like that over. I like that over big time. I don't see, like I said, Kansas City taking the foot off the gas. Mahomes is going to let it up. They score fast. And, Kelsey and all their other weapons, I just see them going crazy, getting a few turnovers, good field position, and attacking this Jacksonville team, especially in the second half. So, just to recap, Lawrence overpassing yards 242.5, shortest touchdown over 1.5 yards, minus 105. Kansas City over 31 team total. Lock it in. No shock here. No underdog, and I don't think the game's going to be that close, to be honest. All right, moving on to the next game on the Saturday night. Now, this is the Giants take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles, number 1 seed in the NFC, and they also have their bye week like the Chiefs did. They're 7.5-point favorites. And, here's the strange part. Just doing some research and following some folks on Twitter, apparently a lot of money's coming on the Giants at plus 7.5. But, with the amount of money that's getting onto the Giants, the line's not moving. Usually you'd see possibly, 8 points or 9 points or... you see the line move one way or another based on, one side being hit pretty hard. It would go down. I said 8 points, what an idiot I am. Sorry, my math, public school system, my apologies. It would go down to 7 or 6.5 because of the money going on the Giants. And maybe 7.5 would be too high. And it looks like the books are keeping it at 7.5. That's been a few days now, and it's still there. So that means somebody knows something. That means somebody's expecting maybe a guy in a big briefcase show up with a big sack or a briefcase full of Benjamins that's going to hit that spread as soon as it goes down, below 7.5 on the Eagles. So something's up with that. But I do like the Eagles to smash the Giants. I think the Giants are going to be overvalued based on last week. Let's remember who they were playing. The Minnesota Vikings. Yes, they had 13 wins this season, but they had a horrible run in a lot of games. And if you recall in the Thanksgiving night, they played the Patriots. They won, but they made Jones and the New England offense look like it was the greatest show on turf from the a la the Kurt Warner Rams. I think it's a false hope that the Giants have. The Eagles know this team very well. You can't look at that game to end the year, even though the Giants are playing all their backups and the Eagles were playing to make sure they won. I am pretty sure, despite the needing the win, that Jalen Hurts was still kind of holding back, not leaving the pocket, throwing the ball away. And I think the brakes are off. I think the training wheels are going to be off this time around. Jalen Hurts is going to show why he maybe won't, depending on the injury and the games he's missed, be an MVP candidate, may win it. And I think they'll, beat the shit out of the Giants. That's going to happen. I think 7.5 is too low. The Eagles are the value. And I also like the Eagles at -4 in the first half. I think they control this game. I think they get ahead. I think they get ahead of the Giants. I think the Giants can't play the style they played against the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles know them way too well, and there's too much depth for the Eagles. It's going to be Eagles all day. Jalen Hurts, I like him at 51.5 over rushing yards. I think he's going to take off. Again, the training wheels are going to be off. He will take off, leave the pocket, and I think he'll be hurting the Giants pretty bad. No pun intended, but actually it was. And also team total for the Philadelphia Eagles, 28.5. I see them scoring 30-plus points here. I see, again, turnovers. Daniel Jones had one great game. I don't see those two games happening back-to-back. And I think the Giants will struggle to move the ball. So I like the Eagles. Best bet. Giants are done. They have their win. And, off to the golf course. Now we get into the Sunday matchups. And the heavyweight tilt that we're looking for is the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Buffalo Sabres. What's the Buffalo Sabres here? The Buffalo Bills. Bills are 5.5-point favorites. Obviously, emotions in this game where the Cincinnati Buffalo matchup was where Damar Hamlin had his medical, cardiac arrest and cancellation of the football game. So emotions will be running high. Teams, very familiar with the incident that occurred. I'm sure he'll be in attendance and cheering on the Bills, and they'll probably jack up the guys in the locker room to get them going and ready to run through a wall to win this game for them. And I do like the Bills in this game. I don't know about the 5.5. I mean, this could be a close game. 5.5 seems a little too big, and maybe something you want to throw on a teaser to put a little more cushion behind the Bengals. But what I like in this game is I do like this to be a high-scoring affair. I like 49. I don't think it's high enough, and I'll take the over all day on that. Josh Allen, 275.5 over. If we're going by how the Bills are playing right now, I like the over for that, for the passing yards. If the Bills are going to throw 40-yard bombs and 50-yard bombs and get touchdowns, but fumble and turnovers and keep the opposition of the game, in which I think the Bengals will take advantage of any turnover that will happen. So Josh Allen, 275.5 yards. He was plus 300, like 350 last week against Miami. So I'll take it all day. Stephon Diggs, last two games, over 100 yards. Go-to guy, big play threat for the Buffalo Bills. And the line right now is 79.5 passing yards, or reception yards. I'll take that all day. Diggs is the game changer. He's proven in the playoffs. He's Josh Allen's guy. He's going to have a big day. 100 plus, 79.5 seems to me an easy cash out there. And I'll take Josh Allen, 38.5 yards, longest pass. This guy, 38.5 yards, is like a dump off to him. He has one flick of the wrist. He's throwing 50 yards. So I see this happening, whereas at least one big play, 40 plus yards. Bills, lock it in. And here's the interesting game of the day. The game, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know what you think about out of the four games, what the most intriguing, interesting game to tune into and make sure you don't miss. I think the Cowboys, and I think the 49ers. I didn't even touch base on the Cowboys and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so let's do that now. Cowboys, I liked them going into this game. I looked at that game against Tampa Bay, and you looked at a Tampa Bay team that everybody put their money on, or those who did put their money on, was nostalgia for Tom Brady. I'm one of them. I like. Again, I'm not a pro bettor, and I walked into this podcast a week ago talking about how I love the Cowboys value at 2.5. I love them to kind of light up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love to have with Dak Prescott would have a big game, and I thought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were done. I think there was nothing in 17 games that there was any. They had a couple comebacks against some weak teams, but there was nothing there. They looked like a broken team. They spent all year trying to fix their run game, and these passes constantly right off the snap to either behind the line of scrimmage or just in front of the line of scrimmage. It's so predictable, and just the same old stuff was happening on Monday night, and the Cowboys took advantage. So the Cowboys coming into San Francisco, I like the Cowboys. I'm going to go with that +4 because that's what the 49ers are favored by, -4 points over the Cowboys. 49ers, have looked like a powerhouse. Brock Purdy in at quarterback has done everything he's had to do. He's impressed, but I think this is a different story here. I think at -4 or +4 for Dallas, I see them as that Baltimore Ravens type team right now. I don't know if they're going to the Super Bowl, but at least I think they're going to make a run to the conference championship, and I think they go through San Francisco. But just to be safe, I'll tell you that I'll take the Cowboys +4. I like that a lot. And if they lose by a field goal, hey, I win. Some things here I like in this game include successful 2-point conversion, +330. If you watch the Monday Nighter, you'll see that they're actually pretty good kicker, Mahar, whatever his name is, missed 4 extra points. 4 extra points. And they signed, currently this week, they signed a kicker to the practice roster. So what is their kicking situation? How confident is McCarthy in this kicking situation? Can you think about being a kicker that as soon as you missed that first extra point on Monday, like what went through his mind? What rattled him? Where three other kicks he couldn't make. Psychological. It is such a big deal when it comes to performance, and you got to really think fast through the Cowboys. That am I going to go with this guy? Is he psychologically done? Because it seems like a kicker starts to have the yips. You got to go. You got to go. But it's too late now. I don't think you can pick a guy off the practice roster and put him in a situation that may be the difference of you winning or losing a game in a pressure cooker in this type of environment. So I think you go with him, and you just have to decide, am I just going to go for 2 points conversions? And I think there's a good chance that there might be multiple 2-point attempts by the Cowboys. And if one team attempts and the score is off by a point, or because maybe a 2-point conversion has not been successful, I think you'll see multiple attempts by both teams because of how the score will look as the game progresses. So I like the +320. I'm going with it. And I also like the Cowboys over their team total, 21 points at -108. I do see this as kind of a high-scoring affair, and I do see that the Cowboys will at least score 3 touchdowns. So and maybe 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions. Who knows? Also, Dak Prescott. I think he looked great against the Buccaneers, and I think you'll see that a great game against the 49ers, and I think you're going to see over 254.5 as far as passing yards. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and put money on that. And here's one I think is good value. Yes, Brock Purdy has been outstanding as far as a third-string quarterback. He is Mr. Irrelevant. The last pick of the NFL draft. But I think you have Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. You have a defense with Parsons and others and Lauren, all the folks that put pressure on a team like the 49ers do. And I think this pressure will at least have Brock Purdy throwing a pick. And whether it be the pressure of the D or the pressure of the situation, at some point, there's going to be a time where Brock Purdy struggles. And I think it's going to be this Sunday. So this is the most interesting game to me. I do believe that the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are going to win this game, but I'll take the +4 just to be safe. And, I don't like to be safe. I like to kind of lay it out there, but we're going to go with that. So the recap on that game is going to be Cowboys +4, successful 2-point conversion of the game of +330, Dallas over 21 points, Dak Prescott over 254.5, and Brock Purdy, quarterback, San Francisco 49ers, with at least one interception at -115. All right, everybody. That's the look at the action. Remember, big sporting weekend out there. Talked about the Australia Open, PGA, but don't forget about the NHL, NBA, EPL, Bundesliga, German soccer is back. Get on top of that, and it's good value there. And NCAA basketball, got to do my homework there so we can move beyond football and the podcast. So let's have a winning weekend and join the Overrated Experience. Reminder, Overrated Experience on Twitter, Overrated EXPER2, and join the community there. Get some more experience. So the pleasure's been all yours. Hope to see you again. Have a great evening.